My husband brought me gifts from Europe. Perfumes, chocolates, luxury bags. After a family dinner, it all vanished. Then my daughter-in-law posted photos with my bag. I called my son. Daniel said, "My wife said she'd use it more than you, so I gave her everything." That was when my husband lost his temper. If you are watching this, subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Now let me back up to explain how we got here, because honey, this story has more twists than a pretzel factory. 4 weeks ago, my husband, Robert Parker, returned from his business trip to Milan with arms full of gifts that made my heart sing. Dior perfume from Spain. Austrian chocolates that probably cost more than some people's rent. Spanish leather gloves so buttery soft, they felt like heaven. And that stunning Prada bag that made me feel like I was 25 again instead of 65. Robert had been planning this trip for months, and he had promised to bring me something special from each country he visited. "Linda, close your eyes," he had said when he walked through our front door, his suitcase still by his feet. I giggled like a schoolgirl. Yes, at 65, I still giggle and obediently shut my eyes while he arranged everything on our kitchen counter. When I opened them, I nearly cried. Each gift was wrapped in tissue paper from boutiques I had only dreamed of shopping in. The perfume came with a handwritten note from the sales associate in Barcelona. The chocolates were nestled in a wooden box that smelled like cedar and sophistication. And that bag? Oh, that bag came with authenticity papers and a care card that made me feel like royalty. "Robert, this is too much," I had whispered, running my fingers over the butter-soft leather of the Prada bag. He just smiled that crooked smile that made me fall in love with him 45 years ago and said, "Nothing is too much for my girl." I spent the next few days carrying that bag everywhere, feeling more confident than I had in years. At the grocery store, at book club, even to my doctor's appointment, that bag made me stand a little taller and smile a little brighter. Other women noticed it too. Kelly at the bank complimented the leather. My neighbor, Mrs. Collins, asked where I had gotten it. I felt proud telling them it was a gift from my traveling husband. But 2 days after Robert returned, we hosted our monthly family dinner. Daniel, our 40-year-old son, came with Amanda, his wife of 4 years. Amanda seemed particularly interested in everything Robert had brought back, asking detailed questions about each store, each purchase, even asking to see the receipts because she was planning her own European trip. I should have known something was wrong when Amanda spent more time examining my gifts than eating the roast beef I had spent all afternoon preparing. The morning after that dinner, I went to get my bag for a ladies' lunch, and it was gone. Not just the bag. Everything was gone. The perfume, the chocolates, the gloves, even the tissue paper and shopping bags. I tore apart my bedroom thinking maybe Robert had moved everything for some reason. I checked the closets under the bed, even in the laundry room, though. Why European luxury goods would be in there was beyond me. "Robert," I called out, my voice echoing through our empty house. He was at work, of course, probably in some important meeting, completely unaware that his carefully chosen gifts had vanished into thin air. I stood in our bedroom, staring at the empty space on my dresser where everything had been displayed, feeling like I was losing my mind. That was when I remembered something odd. When Amanda was leaving the night before, she had been carrying a large shopping bag I had not seen her bring in. At the time, I had assumed she had picked up something from our house that she had forgotten on an earlier visit, maybe a book or some leftover food. But now, standing in my empty bedroom, that shopping bag took on a much more sinister significance. My phone was in my hand before I had fully processed what I was thinking. I scrolled through Amanda's Instagram account, something I rarely did because most of her posts made me feel ancient and out of touch. But there it was, posted just 2 hours ago, a selfie of Amanda in a coffee shop. And there, hanging from her chair, was my bag. My beautiful, irreplaceable, meant-for-me Prada bag. The caption read, "Feeling grateful for beautiful gifts from family. Blessed luxury family love. The audacity was breathtaking. She was not even trying to hide it. She was flaunting it, acting like my husband's thoughtful gift to his wife was somehow hers to claim. I stared at that photo for a full 5 minutes, screenshotting it before she could delete it. My hands were shaking with a combination of rage and disbelief. That was when I called Daniel. "Mom, what is wrong? You sound upset." Daniel's voice had that careful tone he used when he thought I was about to complain about something trivial, like the time I had mentioned that Amanda never thanked me for the birthday gift I had spent weeks selecting, or when I gently suggested that maybe family dinners could occasionally happen at their house instead of always at ours. "Daniel, I need you to explain something to me." I was standing in my kitchen, staring at the screenshot of Amanda wearing my bag, trying to keep my voice level. "Your father brought me gifts from Europe. Beautiful, expensive gifts, and now they are all missing." "Missing? What do you mean, missing?" Daniel asked. "I mean gone, Daniel. Every single thing your father brought me." I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, that particular rhythm that meant he was thinking about what to say next. "Including the Prada bag that is currently featured on your wife's Instagram account?" I asked. The silence that followed was telling. Not the silence of confusion or concern, but the silence of someone who had been caught red-handed and was trying to figure out how to spin the situation. "Oh," he finally said. "Oh," as if my husband's thoughtful gifts were just trivial items like the theft of my personal belongings was a minor inconvenience I should simply overlook. "Yes, Daniel. That. Would you care to explain how my bag ended up on your wife's social media account?" Another pause then, in a tone that suggested I was being unreasonable for even asking. Daniel said, "Amanda really loved that bag, Mom. She does not have anything that nice, and she has been looking at Prada bags online for months. When she mentioned how beautiful it was, I told her she could have it." The casual way he said it, as if he were talking about lending out a book or sharing a dessert, made my vision blur with rage. I had to sit down on one of my kitchen stools before I fell down. "You told her she could have it," I repeated slowly. "My bag that your father brought specifically for me from Milan. You gave it to your wife?" "Well, yeah," he said hesitantly. "I mean, you have other bags, Mom, and Amanda would get more use out of it than you would. She goes to networking events and business dinners. When do you ever go anywhere that requires a bag like that?" When do I ever go anywhere? I repeated as if my life were so small and insignificant that I did not deserve beautiful things. As if reaching 65 somehow disqualified me from owning anything luxurious or special. And the perfume, I asked, my voice getting dangerously quiet. The chocolates, the gloves. Did Amanda need those more than I did too? She took the perfume because she has never owned anything from Dior. The chocolates were going to go bad anyway. You are always watching your sugar. And the gloves? He trailed off, probably realizing how ridiculous this was all starting to sound. Let me see if I understand this correctly, I said, standing up and beginning to pace around my kitchen island. Your father spent thousands of dollars on gifts specifically chosen for his wife. That is me. In case you have forgotten, you decided that your wife deserved them more. It is not like that, Mom. Do not be dramatic. Dramatic. I was being called dramatic for being upset that my own son had essentially robbed me. The same son I had carried for 9 months, nursed through countless illnesses, driven to soccer practice, piano lessons, and college interviews. The son whose wedding I had helped pay, for whose house down payment I had contributed, to whose life I had supported in every way a mother could. What is not like that, Daniel? Because from where I am standing, it looks exactly like that. Look. Amanda saw the stuff and really loved it. She does not have family who can afford to give her things like that. Her parents are teachers. Mom. They cannot just fly to Europe and buy luxury goods. And there it was. The implication that because Robert and I had worked hard our entire lives, Because we had saved and invested and been careful with our money, we somehow owed our success to others. The suggestion that because we could afford nice things, those nice things were not really ours to keep. So because Amanda's family has less money, she is entitled to my husband's gifts to me. You are twisting this around. I am just saying that you could be more generous, more understanding of other people's situations. Generous. I had been generous my entire adult life. Generous with my time, my money, my love, my support. I had given Daniel everything he had ever asked for, and plenty he had not. I had welcomed Amanda into our family with open arms, included her in every holiday and celebration, treated her like the daughter I had never had. And this was how that generosity was repaid. Daniel, I want my things back. What you heard me. I want my bag, my perfume, my chocolates, and my gloves today. Mom, you cannot be serious. Amanda has already been using the perfume. The chocolates are probably gone, and she is planning to take the bag to her company's annual dinner next week. Then she will have to make other plans. This is ridiculous. You are being selfish over material things. Selfish. The woman who had raised him alone for 3 months when Robert was deployed overseas was selfish. The woman who had taken care of her mother-in-law for 5 years until she passed was selfish. The woman who had never asked for anything in return for decades of putting her family first was selfish for wanting to keep the gifts her husband had bought her. Daniel, I said, my voice deadly calm now, if those items are not returned to this house by 6:30 tonight, I am calling the police. The police? Mom, these are family matters. You cannot call the police on family. Watch me. I hung up the phone and immediately called Robert. Linda, slow down. What do you mean? Everything is missing. Robert's voice crackled through my phone from his office in downtown Baltimore. I could hear the confusion and concern, but also that slightly distracted tone that meant Robert was trying to process what I was saying, while simultaneously dealing with whatever crisis was currently consuming his workday. I mean, exactly what I said, Robert. Every single gift you brought me from Europe is gone. Daniel gave them to Amanda because apparently I do not deserve beautiful things, and his wife needs them more than the woman you actually bought them for. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could picture Robert sitting in his corner office in downtown Baltimore, probably pulling off his reading glasses and rubbing his temples the way he did when he was trying to control his temper. What the words came out low and measured, which anyone who knew Robert understood, was far more dangerous than if he had been shouting. Our son decided that because Amanda does not have family with money, she was entitled to my Prada bag, my Dior perfume, and everything else. He actually told me I was being selfish for wanting my own gifts back. That little Robert caught himself before finishing that sentence, but I knew exactly what word he had been about to use. I am coming home. Robert, you do not have to leave work early for this. Like hell I do not. I spent 4 weeks planning those purchases, Linda. I went to 4 different countries and hand-selected items I thought would make you smile. I have the receipts, the authenticity certificates, everything. And our son thinks he can just redistribute my gifts like he is running a charity drive. I had heard Robert angry before, but this was different. This was the cold, controlled fury that he usually reserved for business deals gone wrong or contractors who tried to cheat him. It was the voice he used when someone had made the mistake of underestimating him. I will be there in 25 minutes, he said. Do not call Daniel back. Do not do anything. I will handle this. While I waited for Robert to get home, I did something I probably should not have. I called Amanda directly. I had never memorized her personal cell phone number, but it was saved in my contacts from all the times she had texted me about dinner plans or family events. Hi, Linda. Amanda's voice was bright and cheerful, like she did not have a care in the world, like she was not currently in possession of stolen goods. "What is up, Amanda? I think there has been some confusion about the gifts Robert brought me from Milan." Her tone shifted slightly, becoming more cautious. "What kind of confusion?" "The kind where they ended up in your possession instead of mine." A pause then. "Oh, that. Daniel said it was okay. He said you would not mind sharing. Sharing as if I were a toddler who needed to learn to play nicely with others, as if the concept of personal property was somehow foreign to me. Amanda, those were gifts from my husband to me. They were not meant to be shared." "But Linda, you have so many nice things already, and I really, really love that bag. I have never owned anything so beautiful in my entire life." Her voice took on a wheedling quality that I recognized from my years of teaching elementary school. It was the voice children used when they had been caught doing something wrong, but thought they could charm their way out of consequences. "I understand that you like the bag, Amanda, but it is mine. Can you not just let me borrow it for a few weeks? I promise I will take really good care of it." The audacity was breathtaking. She had stolen my belongings, flaunted them on social media, and now she wanted to negotiate borrowing terms as if we were discussing a library book. "No, Amanda, I want all of my things returned immediately." "That is really selfish, Linda. I thought you were more generous than that." And there it was again. That word, selfish. As if wanting to keep my own possessions was somehow morally wrong. "Amanda, if my things are not returned by 6:30 tonight, I am reporting them stolen. You would not call the police on your own family. Try me." I hung up just as I heard Robert's car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched him get out of his BMW, his movements sharp and purposeful. He was still wearing his business suit, but he had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. Robert only rolled up his sleeves when he was preparing for a fight. "Where is my phone?" he asked the moment he walked through the door. Not bothering with a hello or a, "How was your day? Robert, maybe we should." "Where is my phone, Linda?" I pointed to the counter where he had left it that morning. Robert grabbed it and scrolled through his contacts with the efficiency of a man on a mission. "Daniel," he said when the call connected. His voice was calm, conversational, even which somehow made it more threatening. "I understand you have been redistributing gifts that I purchased for your mother." I could not hear Daniel's response, but I could see Robert's jaw tightening with each passing second. "No, son, I am going to stop you right there," Robert interrupted. "I do not care what Amanda wants. I do not care what you think is fair. I do not care about anyone's feelings except your mother's. Those gifts cost me over $9,500, and they were purchased specifically for Linda." $9,500? I had no idea Robert had spent that much. No wonder he was furious. "You have exactly 2 hours to return every single item to this house," Robert continued. "And I mean everything, Daniel. The bag, the perfume, the chocolates, even the tissue paper and shopping bags. If anything is missing or damaged, you will be replacing it at full retail price. No, this is not negotiable. And if I do not see those items by 6:30, I will be calling my attorney to discuss whether what you have done constitutes theft under Maryland law." Robert hung up and looked at me with an expression I had rarely seen in our 45 years of marriage. Pure, unadulterated rage. $9,500, I asked quietly. "That is just the bag and the perfume," he said. The chocolates were another $350, and the gloves were $650. He ran his hands through his hair, messing up the neat style he maintained for work. "I wanted to give you something special, Linda. Something that would make you feel as beautiful as you are." I started crying then, not from sadness, but from relief. Relief that my husband understood what his gifts had meant to me. Relief that he was as outraged as I was. Relief that I was not crazy for feeling violated and disrespected. "They think I am selfish for wanting to keep my own things," I said through my tears. You are not selfish, honey. You are the most generous woman I know. Too generous sometimes. Robert pulled me into his arms. But this stops now. They have taken advantage of your kindness for the last time. That was when my phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. Mom, Dad is being unreasonable. Daniel's voice was tight with frustration. $9,500. There is no way that bag cost that much. I put the phone on speaker so Robert could hear. Would you like to see the receipt, Daniel? Because I have it right here in my desk drawer. This is insane. It is just a purse. It is not just a purse, Robert said, his voice deadly quiet. It is a Prada bag that I had to wait 3 months to get from their Milan boutique. It is a perfume that is limited edition and costs more than most people's weekly salary. And it is a gesture of love from a husband to his wife that your entitled wife decided she deserved more. Amanda is not entitled. She just does not have what Daniel, I interrupted. She does not have a job that pays her $80,000 a year. She does not have a house that we helped you buy. She does not have in-laws who have welcomed her with open arms and included her in everything. That is different. How is it different? I asked. Because you and Dad have everything you need. You do not need expensive bags and perfume to be happy. I had to sit down again. The casual dismissal of my right to enjoy beautiful things simply because I was older, because I was comfortable, because I had worked hard my entire life to reach a point where my husband could afford to buy me gifts like these, it was breathtaking in its cruelty. Daniel, Robert said, and I could hear him struggling to control his temper. Let me explain something to you that your mother is too polite to say. Those gifts were not necessities. They were luxuries. They were meant to make your mother feel special and loved and appreciated. When you gave them to Amanda, you took away your mother's joy and gave it to someone else. That is not generosity. That is theft. It is not theft when it is family. Actually, son, Robert said firmly, legally speaking it is. The value of those items puts this in felony territory. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Finally, Daniel spoke again, and his tone had shifted from defensive to calculating. You are really going to threaten your own son with jail time over some material possessions. I am going to protect my wife from being taken advantage of by people who should love and respect her. Fine, we will bring the stuff back, but do not expect Amanda to be happy about it. I do not care if Amanda is happy about it, I said, finding my voice again. Amanda's happiness is not my responsibility. You are going to destroy our relationship over this. No, Daniel. You destroyed our relationship when you decided your wife's wants were more important than your mother's rights. After Daniel hung up, Robert and I sat in our kitchen in silence for several minutes. I was emotionally exhausted, and Robert looked like he had aged 5 years in the past 2 hours. How did we raise someone so entitled? I asked finally. I have been asking myself the same question, Robert said quietly. He reached across the table and took my hand. Maybe we gave him too much. Maybe we never taught him to respect other people's boundaries. Or maybe Amanda's influence is stronger than our 40 years of parenting. At 5:30, exactly 30 minutes before Robert's deadline, Daniel's car pulled into our driveway. Through the window, I could see Amanda in the passenger seat, her arms crossed, and her face turned away from our house like a sulking child. Daniel got out and opened the trunk, removing 2 shopping bags. Amanda remained in the car. When I opened the front door, Daniel brushed past me without a word and set the bags on our kitchen counter. Robert examined the contents methodically, checking each item against the receipts he had retrieved from his desk. The perfume has been opened, Robert observed. Amanda used it once, Daniel said defensively. It is barely touched. And the chocolates? She ate a few, but most of them are still there. Robert's face turned to granite. So, Amanda helped herself to your mother's gifts, used them, consumed them, and now you are returning what is left, like we should be grateful. Look, Dad, we are returning everything. Is that not what you wanted? What I wanted, Robert said coldly, was for my son to respect his mother enough not to steal from her in the first place. We did not steal anything. We borrowed. Borrowing implies permission was asked and granted. I said, my voice steady but sharp. Taking someone's belongings without their knowledge and then using them is stealing. Daniel's face flushed red. You know what, fine. You want to be petty about this? Go ahead. But do not call us when you need help with something. Do not expect us at family dinners. And do not expect to see your future grandchildren if you keep treating Amanda like she is not part of this family. The threat about grandchildren hit me like a physical blow. Daniel knew exactly where to aim to cause the most damage. Are you blackmailing me? I asked quietly. I am explaining consequences, he said. If you cannot treat my wife with respect and generosity, then maybe we need some distance. Robert stood up so abruptly that his chair scraped against the floor. Get out! What? Get out of my house! Now. Dad, I did not mean you meant every word. You just threatened to withhold our future grandchildren because we would not let your wife keep stolen property. Get out! Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Robert's expression must have warned him off. He headed for the door, pausing only to deliver one final blow. This is not over. Amanda is really hurt by this, and I will not stand by and watch you treat her badly. After they left, I carefully unpacked my returned gifts. The perfume bottle had fingerprints on it. The chocolate box was missing several pieces. The bag showed signs of wear from just one day of use. But what hurt most was not the condition of the returned items. It was the realization that this conflict had revealed something fundamental about my relationship with my son. Something that could not be fixed by returning a purse or replacing eaten chocolates. Robert, I said quietly, I think we are about to lose our son. No, Linda, he said, his voice heavy with sadness. We lost him a long time ago. We just did not want to admit it. The silence from Daniel and Amanda lasted exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, my phone started ringing at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was in my garden, deadheading my roses and trying to pretend that my heart was not breaking when Amanda's name appeared on my screen. Linda, we need to talk. No greeting, no pleasantries. Amanda's voice was cold and controlled, completely different from the sweet, accommodating tone she had used for the past 3 years. About what, Amanda? I asked. About the fact that you have completely humiliated me in front of my friends and coworkers. I straightened up, pulling off my gardening gloves. I am not sure what you mean. I had to cancel my appearance at our company's annual dinner because I no longer have an appropriate bag. My boss asked me about the beautiful Prada bag I had posted on Instagram, and I had to explain that my mother-in-law took it back. Do you have any idea how that made me look? The audacity was stunning. She was calling me to complain about being embarrassed for having to return stolen property. Amanda, that bag was never yours to begin with, but you could have let me keep it. You could have been generous and understanding. Instead, you made me look like a fool. You made yourself look like a fool when you posted pictures of my bag on social media, I said evenly. It is just a bag, Linda. Just a material thing. I thought you were more evolved than to be so possessive about objects. Just a bag. The same dismissive attitude Daniel had shown. The same casual disregard for what those gifts meant to me. If it is just a bag, Amanda, then you should not have any problem living without it. That is not the point, she snapped. The point is that you chose a purse over family harmony. You chose material possessions over your relationship with your son's wife. I walked back toward my house, needing to be inside for this conversation. Through the kitchen window, I could see Robert reading his morning paper, blissfully unaware that the battle was about to resume. Amanda, let me ask you something. I said slowly. If your mother gave your father an expensive watch for his birthday, and I decided I liked it and took it home with me, how would you feel? That is completely different. How is it different? Because it just is. You and Robert have everything. You do not need anything. There it was again, the assumption that because Robert and I had worked hard and been successful, we had somehow forfeited our right to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Amanda, I am going to say this once, and I want you to listen carefully. The value of those gifts was not in the money Robert spent. It was in the thought behind them. It was in knowing that my husband was thinking of me while he was thousands of miles away. It was in the fact that he took time from his business trip to find things that would make me smile. When you took those gifts, you took away that joy. You stole my happiness. You are being dramatic, Amanda said sharply. No, I am being honest, I replied. And here is something else I am going to be honest about. For 3 years, I have watched you take and take and take from this family. You have taken our financial help, our time, our emotional support, our inclusion in every holiday and celebration. And you have given back exactly nothing except criticism and demands for more. The silence on the other end was deafening. That is not true, Amanda finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it not? I asked. When was the last time you invited Robert and me to your house for dinner? When was the last time you asked how we were doing instead of telling us what you needed? When was the last time you expressed genuine gratitude for anything we have done for you? We have been busy. You know how it is with work and everything. Too busy to call your mother-in-law on her birthday. Too busy to send a thank you note for the Christmas gifts. Too busy to help when I was sick with pneumonia last spring. Each example hit its mark. I could hear Amanda's breathing growing shallow and quick. You are attacking me, she said defensively. I am stating facts. And here is another fact, Amanda. I am done. I am done pretending that your behavior is acceptable. I am done making excuses for your selfishness. And I am done allowing you to take advantage of my generosity. What does that mean? It means no more financial help, no more free dinners, no more gifts, no more treating you like family until you start acting like family. You cannot do that. Watch me. I hung up and walked into the kitchen where Robert was still reading his paper. He looked up when he saw my face. Amanda? He asked. Amanda. She is upset because having to return my bag embarrassed her at work. Robert folded his paper with deliberate precision. And I told her that the Bank of Linda is officially closed. Robert smiled for the first time in days. Good for you. But my satisfaction was short-lived. 2 hours later, Daniel called. Mom, what did you say to Amanda? She has been crying for the past hour. I told her the truth about her behavior. You attacked her. You made her feel unwelcome in our family. Daniel? Amanda made herself unwelcome when she decided to steal from me and then complain about having to return what she stole. She did not steal anything. God, you are being so dramatic about this, am I? Daniel, let me ask you something. Do you remember when you were 16 and you took $20 from my purse without asking? What does that have to do with anything? Do you remember what happened when I found out Daniel was quiet for a moment? You grounded me for a month and made me pay you back. That is right. Because taking things that do not belong to you is stealing, regardless of whether you are family or not. And when you steal from someone, there are consequences. But this is different. Amanda is not some teenager taking money for arcade games. You are right. She is a 35-year-old woman who should know better, which makes her behavior even more inexcusable. Mom, you are going to destroy our marriage over this. The threat was clear, and it hit its intended target. Daniel knew that my greatest fear was losing him completely. Daniel, if your marriage cannot survive your wife being asked to return stolen property, then your marriage has bigger problems than my reaction to theft. Amanda is talking about cutting contact with you completely. She says she cannot be around someone who treats her so badly. That is her choice to make, and if she cuts contact, that is on her. I will have to support her. I will not choose between my wife and my mother. But I will not let you continue to hurt her either. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and cried, not from sadness, but from exhaustion. I was tired of fighting for basic respect. I was tired of being treated like a bank account with feelings. I was tired of being blamed for other people's bad behavior. Robert found me there an hour later and sat down beside me without a word. They are going to cut us off, I said quietly. Maybe that is not such a bad thing. I looked at him in surprise. Robert, he is our son. He is our son, Robert said softly, but he is not acting like our family. Linda, when did we start accepting behavior from Daniel that we would never tolerate from anyone else? That was when I realized Robert was right. I had been so afraid of losing Daniel that I had allowed him and Amanda to treat me with disrespect and contempt. I had enabled their behavior by refusing to set boundaries or enforce consequences. What do we do now? I asked. Now we live our lives, Robert said firmly. We stop walking on eggshells around people who do not appreciate us. We stop giving our love and support to people who see it as an entitlement rather than a gift. That evening, as Robert and I sat on our back porch, watching the sunset, I felt something I had not experienced in years: peace. For the first time in my adult life, I was not worried about managing someone else's emotions or preventing someone else's disappointment. I was free. The peace lasted exactly 12 days. Then Amanda's mother called. Linda, this is Linda Benson, Amanda's mother. I hope you do not mind me calling, but Amanda gave me your number. I had met Linda Benson exactly twice in 3 years at Daniel and Amanda's wedding and at their housewarming party. Both times she had seemed pleasant enough, though I had noticed she had the same passive-aggressive communication style as her daughter. Of course, Linda. How are you? Well, I am concerned actually about this situation between you and Amanda. Here we go, I thought. The mother coming to fight her adult daughter's battles. What situation is that, Linda? The situation with the gifts your husband brought back from Europe. Amanda explained what happened, and I have to say, I am shocked. Shocked by what? By your reaction. I mean, I understand being upset, but to threaten police involvement and cut off all financial support over a misunderstanding seems excessive. A misunderstanding. That is what we are calling theft now. Linda, there was no misunderstanding. Amanda took gifts that belonged to me without permission. That is theft. But Linda, they are family. When my daughter Amy borrowed my pearl necklace without asking for her college formal, I did not call it theft. That is what families do. They share. Did Amy take your necklace from your bedroom, wear it to public events, post pictures of it on social media claiming it was a gift to her, and then argue with you when you asked for it back? Linda Benson was quiet for a moment. Well, no, but because that is what Amanda did. And when I asked for my things back, she told me I was selfish and that she deserved them more than I did. Amanda feels terrible about this whole thing. She never meant to cause problems. She just loved that bag so much, and she thought you would not mind sharing. Thought I would not mind. Another convenient assumption that allowed Amanda to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. Linda did. Amanda tell you that she used my perfume, that she ate my chocolates, that she wore my bag out in public multiple times? She mentioned that she had tried the perfume. Yes. But Linda, these are just things. Surely your relationship with your daughter-in-law is more important than material possessions. I was getting really tired of being lectured about what should be important to me, especially by people who seemed to think that my possessions were community property, but their daughters' feelings were sacred. Linda, let me ask you something. If I came to your house and took your wedding ring because I thought it was beautiful and wanted to wear it, how would you feel? That is different. My wedding ring has sentimental value, and you do not think gifts from my husband have sentimental value to me? Well, I suppose, but there is no but. Linda. Amanda stole from me. When confronted, she refused to admit wrongdoing and instead blamed me for being selfish. This is not about material possessions. It is about respect. Linda Benson sighed dramatically. I just think you are being too hard on her. Amanda comes from a family that does not have much money. She is not used to having beautiful things. Surely you can understand her excitement about finally having something luxurious. And there it was, the class argument. The suggestion that because Amanda's family had less money, she was somehow entitled to take things from people who had more. Linda, my financial situation does not obligate me to share my personal belongings with your daughter. If Amanda wants luxurious things, she can save her money and buy them like everyone else. That is a very cold attitude, Linda. I raised Amanda to believe that family takes care of each other. Taking care of each other does not mean stealing from each other. You are being very judgmental. Not everyone was born with advantages. Born with advantages. As if my comfortable life had been handed to me on a silver platter, instead of earned through decades of hard work, careful financial planning, and sacrifice. Linda, I was not born with advantages. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school. Robert and I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment for the first 5 years of our marriage because we were saving for a house. We drove used cars for 15 years. We ate macaroni and cheese for dinner more times than I can count. Every advantage we have now was earned. But surely, now that you are comfortable, you can afford to be generous with family. I am generous with family. I have helped Daniel and Amanda with their house down payment, their car repairs, their emergency expenses. I have hosted every holiday for 3 years. I have given Amanda jewelry, clothes, and money for various occasions. I have been generous to a fault. But generosity has limits, and those limits include not having my personal belongings stolen. Linda Benson was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had taken on a cooler tone. I think you need to consider what is really important here, Linda. Amanda is hurt and upset. Daniel is caught in the middle. You are destroying your family relationships over material things. No, Linda. Amanda destroyed our relationship when she decided to steal from me. I am simply refusing to pretend it did not happen. After I hung up, I realized something important. This phone call had not been about Amanda's hurt feelings or family harmony. It had been a reconnaissance mission. Linda Benson had been testing my resolve, seeing if she could guilt me into backing down. The fact that Amanda had sent her mother to fight this battle told me everything I needed to know about my daughter-in-law's character. She was not sorry. She was not embarrassed. She was strategizing. That evening, Robert and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed with a text message from Daniel. Mom, we need to talk. Amanda's family is getting involved now, and this is getting out of hand. We need to find a way to resolve this before it destroys our entire family. I showed the text to Robert, who read it with a grim expression. He is right about one thing, Robert said. This is destroying our family, but not in the way he thinks. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, this situation has revealed who our family really is. It has shown us that Daniel prioritizes Amanda's wants over your rights. It has shown us that Amanda feels entitled to anything she desires. And it has shown us that they are both willing to recruit other people to pressure you into accepting unacceptable behavior. I stared at my phone, reading Daniel's text again. The words before it, "destroys our entire family," stood out like a threat. "Robert," I said slowly, "I think our family was already destroyed. We just did not want to see it." "Maybe destruction is not always a bad thing," Robert replied. "Sometimes you have to tear down something broken before you can build something better." That night, lying in bed, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done being the family peacekeeper. I was done sacrificing my dignity to preserve relationships with people who did not respect me. And I was definitely done allowing my son and daughter-in-law to treat me like their personal ATM. Tomorrow, I would start building something better. But first, I had some calls to make. The first call I made was to our attorney, Mark Ellison. At 8 in the morning, I was sitting in his office explaining the situation while Robert provided moral support and documentation. "So, let me understand this correctly," Mark said, reviewing the receipts Robert had brought. "Your son took approximately $9,500 worth of gifts, without permission, gave them to his wife, and when confronted, he threatened to withhold access to future grandchildren unless you allowed the theft to continue." "That is exactly right," I confirmed. Mark leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. "Linda, what you are describing is not just theft. It is financial elder abuse. In Maryland, adult children who exploit their elderly parents can face serious legal consequences." "I am not sure I want to press charges," I said carefully. "I just want this behavior to stop." "I understand," Mark replied, "but there are other steps we can take to protect you." He pulled out a legal pad and began making notes. "I would recommend updating your will immediately. Remove Daniel as executor and beneficiary until this situation is resolved. We should also establish a trust that prevents anyone from accessing your assets without your explicit written consent." Robert nodded approvingly. "I like that idea." "Additionally," Mark continued, "I would suggest documenting every interaction you have with them going forward. Save text messages, record phone calls if Maryland law permits, keep receipts for any money you give them. Create a paper trail." By the time we left Mark's office, I felt more in control than I had in weeks. We scheduled an appointment for the following week to completely revise our estate planning, removing Daniel as beneficiary and establishing safeguards against future financial exploitation. The second call I made was to my sister Margaret in California. "Linda, what a nice surprise. How are you and Robert doing?" "We have been better." "Maggie, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out completely before you respond." I explained the entire situation from the stolen gifts to Daniel's threats about grandchildren. Margaret listened without interruption, though I could hear her sharp intake of breath when I described Amanda's social media posts. "That little witch," Margaret said when I finished. "Linda, I have never liked that girl. There is something calculating about her. You never said anything. Would you have listened? You were so happy that Daniel had found someone, but I have been watching Amanda at family gatherings for 3 years, and she is always evaluating what everyone has, what everyone is worth. She looks at your house like she is taking inventory." Margaret's words hit uncomfortably close to home. I remembered Amanda's tours of our house during her first visit, the way she commented on the value of our artwork, the casual questions about our retirement plans. "There is something else," Margaret continued. "Remember last Christmas when she was asking all those questions about your jewelry, about whether you had it appraised recently? I had forgotten about that conversation. Amanda had shown unusual interest in my wedding ring, asking where we had bought it, whether it had increased in value over the years, whether I had ever considered updating the insurance coverage. She was casing the place," Margaret said bluntly. "Linda, I think this bag incident is just the beginning. I think Amanda has been planning to get her hands on your assets for a while now. After talking to Margaret, I started seeing the past 3 years differently. Amanda's interest in our financial planning was not familial concern. It was reconnaissance. Her suggestions about updating our wills for tax purposes were not helpful advice. They were attempts to influence our estate planning. Her questions about our insurance policies were not casual conversation. They were information gathering. The third call I made was to my neighbor Helen, who had been a private investigator before retiring. Helen, I need a favor. Can you teach me how to research someone's background? Linda, what are you up to? I am learning things about my daughter-in-law that are making me question everything I thought I knew about her. 2 hours later, Helen was in my kitchen with her laptop showing me how to search public records, court documents, and social media histories. The trick, Helen explained, is knowing where to look and what questions to ask. Start with basic background checks, criminal records, civil lawsuits, bankruptcy filings. Then move to social media, not just current accounts, but deleted posts and archived content. What we found made my blood run cold. Amanda had been married before. Not just engaged, not just in a long-term relationship. Married in Nevada 3 years before she met Daniel. The marriage had lasted 18 months and ended in divorce with allegations of financial misconduct. Look at this, Helen said, pointing to a court document on her screen. Her first husband filed for divorce citing misappropriation of marital assets and fraudulent financial behavior. He accused her of stealing money from their joint accounts and running up credit card debt in his name. There was more. Amanda had been involved in 2 civil lawsuits in the past 5 years, both involving disputes over borrowed money that was never repaid. In one case, she had borrowed $18,000 from a former colleague for what she claimed was a medical emergency. When the colleague discovered Amanda had used the money for a vacation to Europe, she sued for repayment. Linda, Helen said quietly, "Your daughter-in-law is a con artist. She targets people with money and manipulates them into giving her access to their assets." Does Daniel know any of this? That is a good question. Let us find out. Helen showed me how to search for marriage records in our county. What we discovered was that Amanda had listed herself as never married on her marriage license application with Daniel. She had lied about her entire past. That evening, I sat Robert down and showed him everything we had found. The color drained from his face as he read through the court documents and financial records. "Our son married a criminal," he said finally. "Our son married a criminal who lied to him about her past and has been planning to steal from us since the day she walked into our family." Robert was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. Then he looked at me with an expression I had rarely seen. Cold determination. "Linda, we are going to destroy her." "What do you mean?" I asked. Robert said, his voice low and steady. "We are going to expose exactly who Amanda Benson really is. And then we are going to watch our son make a choice between his lying, stealing wife and his family." The next morning, I called Daniel and asked him to come over without Amanda. "We need to have a family conversation," I told him. "Just the 3 of us." Daniel arrived at noon, his face already set in defensive lines before he even walked through the door. "Mom, if this is about the bag again, sit down, Daniel." Robert's voice left no room for argument. "We have some things to show you." I placed the folder of documents Helen and I had compiled on the coffee table. Daniel's eyes flicked to it nervously. "What is this? This is information about your wife." "Information she apparently forgot to mention before you married her." Daniel's face went pale. "What kind of information? The kind that explains why she has been so interested in our financial situation?" Robert said. "The kind that reveals a pattern of behavior that includes theft, fraud, and lying about her past." I opened the folder and handed Daniel the marriage certificate from Nevada. "Did you know Amanda was married?" Before Daniel stared at the document, his hands shaking slightly. "That is not possible. She told me she had never been married." She lied, I said quietly. She was married for 18 months to a man named David Chin. The marriage ended when he accused her of stealing money from their joint accounts. I handed him the divorce papers. Daniel read them in silence, his face growing paler with each page. This could be someone else with the same name, he said weakly. Could be, except for this. I handed him a photograph from Amanda's old social media account from 4 years ago. A wedding photo with David Chin clearly labeled with the date and location. Daniel stared at the photo for a full minute without speaking. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. Why did she not tell me? Because people who make a living deceiving others do not usually advertise their methods, Robert said bluntly. Daniel, your wife is a con artist. She targets financially stable people, gains their trust, and then systematically steals from them. I handed him the civil lawsuit documents. She borrowed $18,000 from a colleague claiming it was for medical bills. She used it to take a vacation to Europe. Sound familiar? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. She said she had never been to Europe before our honeymoon. Another lie, I said softly. She has been to Europe at least 3 times that we can document, all funded by money she borrowed under false pretenses. Daniel Roberts said gently. How much money have you given Amanda since you have been married? I do not know. We share everything. We have joint accounts. How much money did you have in savings before you married her? Robert asked quietly. Daniel hesitated. About $40,000. And how much do you have now? We are behind on some bills. Amanda said it was because of the economy. Robert and I exchanged a knowing look. Daniel, we need you to check your credit report. We need you to look at your bank statements for the past 3 years. And we need you to find out exactly where your money has gone. After Daniel left, Robert and I sat in our kitchen feeling as if we had just dropped a bomb on our own family. But the explosive device had been planted 3 years earlier when Amanda walked into our lives. We had only now decided to defuse it. That evening, Daniel called again. Mom, I have been going through our financial records. His voice sounded hollow. There are withdrawals I do not remember making, credit card charges for things I never bought, loan applications I never signed. Oh, Daniel, she has stolen over $30,000 from me over the past 3 years. I have been working overtime to pay bills she created with purchases I knew nothing about. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Daniel, I am so sorry. No, Mom, I am sorry. I let her manipulate me into believing that you were the problem. I let her convince me that you were selfish and unreasonable when she was the one stealing from all of us. What are you going to do? I asked softly. I am going to confront her tonight, and depending on what she says, I am going to decide whether to file for divorce or call the police. Daniel, be careful. If she is desperate, she might. What? Steal my identity, empty our bank accounts, disappear in the middle of the night. Mom, she has already done all of that. 2 hours later, the phone rang again. She is gone, Daniel said simply. What do you mean gone? I mean, she cleared out her clothes, her jewelry, her personal items. She left a note saying she needed space to think about our relationship, and she transferred the last $800 from our joint account into an account I cannot access. Daniel, you need to call the police. I already did. They are treating it as identity theft and fraud. Apparently, she has done this before in other states. The FBI has a file on her. I sat down hard on my kitchen stool. The FBI? She is part of a larger investigation into marriage fraud. Daniel said, his voice flat. She specifically targets older men with assets or men from wealthy families. She marries them, steals everything she can, and disappears. How did she find you? Daniel's laugh was bitter. Dating websites. She targeted men whose profiles mentioned family wealth or inheritance prospects. She chose me because she researched you and Dad online and found out about Dad's business success. The calculating nature of Amanda's deception was breathtaking. She had not fallen in love with Daniel. She had hunted him like prey. "Daniel, come home," I said softly. "Come stay with us until you figure out your next steps." "Mom, I do not deserve. You deserve to be loved by people who care about you more than your bank account. You deserve to have your mother take care of you when you are hurting. And you deserve to know that your family will always be here for you, no matter what mistakes you have made." When Daniel arrived that night with 2 suitcases and a devastated expression, Robert and I welcomed him home like the prodigal son he was, because that is what family does when the con artists and thieves have finally been exposed. We take care of our own. Living with Daniel again after 3 years reminded me of why I had loved being his mother so much. Away from Amanda's influence, he was thoughtful, funny, and genuinely remorseful about how he had treated us. But it also revealed the extent of the psychological manipulation he had endured. "She convinced me that you were jealous of her," Daniel told me one morning over coffee. "She said you resented having to share my attention and that you were trying to drive a wedge between us." I poured myself another cup, trying to process how efficiently Amanda had turned my son against me. She had an explanation for everything. Daniel continued. "When you offered to help with something, she said you were being controlling. When you gave her gifts, she said you were trying to buy her affection. When you included her in family activities, she said you were being possessive of family traditions." "Daniel, how did we not see this?" I whispered. "Because she was good at it, Mom. Really good. She would wait until you were out of the room to make her comments. She would phrase things as concerns about family dynamics rather than direct criticisms. And she would always follow up with something sweet, like how much she loved being part of our family, despite the challenges." Over the following days, more details emerged about Amanda's systematic manipulation. She had been monitoring their phone calls, encouraging Daniel to share details about our conversations. She had gone through our mail when she visited, photographing bank statements and investment documents. She even convinced me to install a tracking app on my phone so she could monitor who I talked to and where I went. Daniel admitted, looking ashamed. "She said it was for safety," he explained. "She said married couples should be completely transparent with each other." The investigation into Amanda's background revealed an even more disturbing pattern. In the past 8 years, she had been married 4 times under different names, each time leaving her husband financially ruined and emotionally broken. Each marriage had followed the same script target: a financially stable man, gain access to his assets, take everything possible, and disappear when confronted. Detective Laura Hayes from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit called to update us on the investigation. "Mrs. Parker, your daughter-in-law's real name is Kimberly Reed. She has been operating under false identities for nearly a decade. The Amanda Benson identity was completely fabricated. Stolen Social Security number, fake employment history, and a created credit profile." "How is that even possible?" I asked, stunned. "Identity theft has become incredibly sophisticated," Detective Hayes explained. "She steals personal information from deceased individuals and builds entire false personas. The Amanda Benson who married your son never actually existed. The depth of the deception was staggering. The woman who had sat at our dinner table, shared our holidays, and lived in our family for 3 years was a complete fiction." Detective Hayes: "What happens now?" I asked. "We have issued warrants for her arrest in 5 states. She is facing charges for identity theft, wire fraud, marriage fraud, and multiple counts of theft. When we find her, she will be going to prison for a very long time." After I hung up, I found Daniel sitting on our back porch, staring blankly at the trees in the yard. "I keep thinking about all the times she said she loved me," he said, without looking up. How am I supposed to know if anything about our relationship was real? I sat down beside him. Daniel con artists are skilled at mimicking real emotions. That is how they succeed. But that does not mean you were foolish for believing her. I defended her against you, Mom. I chose her over my own family. No, I said gently. You chose what you thought was love over what you thought was unfair criticism. There is a difference. We sat in silence for a while, watching Robert tend to his tomato plants at the edge of the yard. The sun was setting the sky streaked with gold and pink, the kind of calm that feels earned after too many storms. Finally, Daniel spoke again. How do I trust anyone again? How do I know if someone genuinely cares about me or just sees me as a target? It was a question I could not answer easily. Amanda, or rather Kimberly, had done more than destroy his finances. She had shattered his confidence, his ability to trust his own instincts. I think I said carefully, you start by rebuilding relationships with people who have proven their love over time. People who were here before her and who will still be here long after she is gone. Like you and Dad. Like me and Dad. Like your sister when she calls from Portland. Like your friends who tried to warn you about her, but stopped when you were not ready to hear it. People tried to warn me? He asked softly. Daniel, half our neighborhood was talking about her behavior at the Hendersons' barbecue last summer. The way she kept asking intrusive questions about everyone's finances and making comments about their possessions. I said quietly. Mrs. Patterson actually asked me if everything was okay because Amanda's behavior seemed predatory. Daniel buried his face in his hands. God, I was such an idiot. No, I said firmly. You were a victim. There is a difference, and it is important that you understand that. That evening, Robert suggested we go out to dinner, the first family meal we had shared without Amanda's presence in 3 years. I feel like I can breathe again, Daniel said over dessert. Like I have been holding my breath for 3 years, and I am finally able to exhale. What do you want to do now? Robert asked. About work? About where you will live? About your future? I want to rebuild, Daniel said. I want to figure out who I am when I'm not being manipulated and controlled. And I want to make things right with you and Mom. Things are already right, I said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. The moment you walked back through our door, things were right. But even as I said it, I knew there was one more revelation coming, something Detective Hayes had mentioned in passing during our last call. Something about Amanda's pattern of behavior that had not quite made sense yet. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Amanda, or rather, Kimberly Reed had disappeared. Mrs. Parker, we have arrested Kimberly Reed in Atlanta. Detective Hayes said, her voice grim. She was attempting to withdraw a large sum of money under a false identity. That is wonderful news, I said, exhaling in relief. There is something else, she continued. Something you need to know about why she targeted your family specifically. I sat down, my pulse quickening. What do you mean, Mrs. Parker Kimberly Reed did not randomly select your son through online dating? She specifically researched and targeted your family based on information she received from someone who knew you personally. My blood ran cold. Someone provided her with detailed information about your family's finances, your daily routines, your relationships, even your emotional vulnerabilities. This was not a random con. It was a carefully orchestrated inside job. Who? I whispered. We are still investigating, Detective Hayes said. But based on phone records and financial transactions, we believe Kimberly was working with an accomplice, someone who had intimate knowledge of your family dynamics. After I hung up, I called Robert and Daniel into the kitchen. Robert's face went white when I explained what Detective Hayes had told me. Someone we know set us up, he said slowly. But who? Daniel asked. Who would have that kind of detailed information about our family? We spent the next hour making a list of everyone who knew about our finances, our routines, and our relationships. The deeper we thought, the shorter the list became, and the closer the truth crept to home. The list was shorter than I had expected: immediate family, our attorney, our financial advisor, a few close friends. That was when Robert's expression changed. Linda, remember when Amanda was asking all those questions about our estate planning last Christmas? Yes, she was not just making conversation, Robert said grimly. She was confirming information she already had. What do you mean? Robert was silent for a long moment, his face growing darker. There is only one person outside our immediate family who knows the details of our will, our investment accounts, our insurance policies. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Mark Ellison, our attorney, the man we had trusted with our most sensitive financial information for 15 years. Daniel looked confused. But we just met with him about updating the will. He was helping us protect our assets. Or he was finding out how much damage Amanda had done, Robert said, his voice tight, and whether we suspected anything. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. Mark had been unusually interested in our family dynamics during our last meeting. He had asked detailed questions about Daniel's marriage, about our concerns with Amanda, about how we managed our finances as a family. At the time, I thought he was being thorough. Now I realized he might have been gathering intelligence. We need to call Detective Hayes, I said. An hour later, Detective Hayes was sitting in our living room with an FBI financial crime specialist taking detailed notes about our relationship with Mark Ellison. How long has Mr. Ellison been your attorney? Detective Hayes asked. 15 years, Robert replied. Since we moved to Maryland, and he has access to all your financial information. Everything Robert said: bank accounts, investment portfolios, insurance policies, real estate holdings, business assets. He has drafted our wills, handled our tax planning, and managed our estate documents. The FBI specialist looked up from her notes. Mrs. Parker, we have been tracking Kimberly Reed's activities for 2 years. She is part of a larger network that includes professionals who provide inside information about potential targets, lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors who sell client data to con artists. Mark sold our information. I asked, my voice trembling. We are still investigating, the specialist said carefully, but the timing is suspicious. Kimberly Reed arrived in Maryland and began targeting your son exactly 6 months after you and Mr. Ellison updated your estate planning. That is when she would have learned about the size of your estate and your family dynamics. My head was spinning. Mark Ellison had been more than our attorney. He had been our friend. He had attended Robert's birthday parties. His wife had been in my book club. We trusted him with our most sensitive information for 15 years, I whispered. How do we prove it? Robert asked. We are obtaining warrants for his phone records, email accounts, and financial transactions, Detective Hayes said. If he has been selling client information, we will find evidence. That evening, after the investigators left, the three of us sat in stunned silence, realizing that betrayal does not always come from strangers. Sometimes it walks through your front door with a friendly smile and a stack of legal documents. 15 years, Robert said, finally his voice rough. 15 years of trusting someone who was selling us out. How many other clients has he betrayed? I asked quietly. Daniel was staring down at his hands. This is all my fault. If I had not been so easy to manipulate, none of this would have happened. No, I said firmly, placing a hand on his arm. This happened because people we trusted betrayed that trust. You were a victim, Daniel, not a co-conspirator. The next morning brought another devastating revelation. Detective Hayes called with an update on the investigation. Mrs. Parker, we found evidence that Mark Ellison has been selling client information for at least 5 years. Kimberly Reed was just one of several con artists he has been working with. We have identified at least 12 other victims in the Maryland, Virginia area. 12 other families, I whispered. 12 other families who have been targeted based on information Ellison provided. The total theft amounts to over $2 million. I had to sit down. Mark Ellison had not just betrayed our family, he had been running a criminal enterprise selling the private financial data of dozens of loyal clients to thieves and con artists. What happens now? I asked. Mr. Ellison will be arrested later today. We will need you to testify about your relationship with him and the information he had access to. This is going to be a major case, Mrs. Parker. The betrayal of attorney-client privilege on this scale is unprecedented. After I hung up, I realized this revelation changed everything about the past 3 years. Amanda's theft of my gifts had not been an impulsive act of greed. It had been part of a carefully planned campaign to dismantle our finances from the inside out. Mark Ellison had given her a detailed roadmap of our assets, our routines, and our weaknesses. But one thing still did not fit: something about the timing, about how quickly Amanda had gained Daniel's trust, about how efficiently she had isolated him from us. It felt orchestrated, not improvised. The final revelation came that evening during Mark Ellison's arrest. Detective Hayes called again, and her tone made my heart stop. Mrs. Parker, we found something in Ellison's office that changes everything we thought we knew about this case. What did you find? I asked, gripping the phone. A file labeled Parker Family Long-Term Strategy. It contains detailed plans spanning 5 years, beginning from when Kimberly Reed was to meet your son, leading up to when she would inherit your entire estate. My breath caught. What do you mean, inherit our estate? Mrs. Parker, this was not just a theft operation, Detective Hayes said quietly. It was a murder-for-profit scheme. The plan was for Kimberly to marry Daniel, gain your trust, and eventually arrange for you and Mr. Parker to die in what would appear to be an accident. The words hit me like a physical blow. I could not speak. I could not breathe. I could only sit there, the phone trembling in my hand, realizing that the people we had trusted most had not just been willing to take our money, they had been willing to take our lives. With Daniel as your heir, and Kimberly as his wife. Detective Hayes said softly, she would have inherited everything. My voice trembled. How are they planning to kill us? The file contained detailed surveillance notes, your routines, your medical history, your travel plans. They were planning to sabotage your car during your upcoming trip to visit your sister in Arizona next month. I began to cry, then, not from grief, but from a wave of pure terror and rage, unlike anything I had ever felt. Mrs. Parker, are you there? Yes, I whispered. There is more, Detective Hayes continued gravely. Mark Ellison was not just selling information to random criminals. He was specifically targeting elderly clients with significant estates and adult children who could be manipulated. He has been orchestrating inheritance fraud schemes for years. My voice cracked. How many people have they killed? We are investigating at least 6 suspicious deaths of Ellison's clients over the past 3 years. All were older individuals who died in apparent accidents shortly after their children married people later discovered to be using false identities. The magnitude of the conspiracy was staggering. Mark Ellison had not just betrayed his clients, he had built a murder-for-profit network using con artists like Kimberly Reed to infiltrate families, eliminate obstacles to inheritance, and walk away rich. Detective Hayes, how close did they come to succeeding with us? Too close. Mrs. Parker, if you had not discovered the missing gifts when you did, if you had not started questioning Kimberly's background, you and your husband would likely have been dead within the month. After I hung up, I called Robert and Daniel into the living room and told them everything. Robert went completely pale and sank into a chair. Daniel doubled over and began to vomit. They were going to kill you, Daniel said through tears. They were going to murder my parents and make me inherit your money so she could take it. But they did not succeed, I said firmly. Because sometimes, Daniel, a mother's instinct to protect her beautiful things leads to protecting something far more important. The irony was not lost on any of us. My so-called selfishness over a stolen handbag had saved our lives. In the weeks that followed, the investigation expanded into a national case. Mark Ellison's network was found to have been operating